And we are live with yet another episode of the Black Stitch Hockey Cast. We are simultaneously very inspired and to some degrees excited for this week's episode in light of recent significant hockey events. There's some emotional and therapeutic value for us this week in this episode. A lot of thoughts are with the Gaudreau family at their trying time. And, that's obvious where our thoughts, our minds, our hearts are at this point in time. We very much wanted to do this episode. I know historically sometimes we've shied away from doing episodes during turbulent times, but with Liam being so connected into the Philly and just really New Jersey, Ohio area hockey scene, this entire podcast being, located out of, Boston College's immediate umbrella, and additionally, everybody on this team on our end being fans of short kings in the NHL and people being able to pursue and chase their dreams at any level despite what other people may think, and appreciating the skill, talent, and just the humanity that comes with athletes at this level who are not only the best player on the ice but the best human in any building they enter. With that as my preamble to this episode, my opening monologue, as some would call it, I open the floor up.
Yeah, it's very good to contextualize the number of subsections of the community of the sport that this matters to, because when discussing this with, you know, um, friends from the New Jersey hockey community, particularly the southern part of the state, and also just generally the broader Philadelphia metro area, I said, a big part of why we galvanized ourselves up here was because, a formative or at least core hockey memory for so many people up here is what he did at Boston College. So, it matters a lot to us, but I know that he belonged to you guys first and foremost, so my heart really goes out to you right now. And a response I got was thank you, but really, with the exception obviously of close friends and family, he didn't belong to anyone more than any other group of people, but he touched a lot of lives across North America that are involved in the sport. And I think that's like a great way of framing it, is that in a way, as just as fans and engage people engage with the sport in different capacities, he belonged to us all. This is really like something that I thought about upon greater reflection, even though my gut instinct was to think about the people in that home region that were most directly impacted by it. Might even have degrees of separation from the brothers. It just was this is something that we're all in together, regardless of where we're from or where we're located.
Absolutely, man. This week, this episode might have more pauses than usual as we just allow a lot of the thoughts to really sit out there as we process and continue to grieve and really just appreciate and love the legacy that was defined. And, Johnny's at a point where he's no longer able to write his legacy. So now panels like us, podcasters, broadcasters, family, friends, This is where it becomes more important in our lives to make sure that his legacy is continued to be contextualized, following the unfortunate events that transpired of, not letting a man as the saying goes, a man truly dies when he's forgotten about, and really doing the work to put this content out there to make sure that Johnny and Matt Gaudreau still have people talking about them for decades to come, and not letting the impacts that they made not carry on the way that they should. Who we are, and this comes back to conversations we have all the time of, the players that made such a prolific impact off the ice are just such an important part of the game, and the guys who do the great work, the mental health advocacy, really just making sure that the message and the vision that players and humans like them have continue to be carried on through, your analysts, your bloggers, your fans. And as I keep going and being as abstract as possible on this, because I'm still just processing what I can do without pedagogically being, your classic typical straight white man trying to look at this through the myopic lens of his own self-actualization. Don't
Yeah,
accuse me of plagiarism. I know Bo Burnham said it first.
yeah. Like thinking about the different avenues of participation in via coaching and player dev that Matthew was involved in, and just the fact that on the grassroots level, like for both of those guys, the USHL squads, the Omaha Lancers and Dubuque Fighting States, clearly recognize the impact that those guys had on their teams. And I'm sure we'll see a lot from Boston College in the coming times as well for both of them. And it's like, you know, and just the for Johnny particularly, like every single undersized player, that's like a skill guy, like that's come about, owes a lot to him. Probably as like even recognize that they have, possibilities for what they can do because of his success. As you know, a very under-recognized fourth rounder that always had the talent, but didn't have the external anticipation going for him, and just completely shattered everyone's preconceived notions over and over again. And just observers who watched in the markets that he played in, like we already know that his own teammate Kent Johnson, watching him up close in his youth did for him. And then, of course, things came full circle with him getting to play with him at such an important formative stage in his career. Guy, things like that. In terms of just what orgs and like people that come up in the next generation, whether for in environments that those guys played in or coached in, like in the NCDC, for instance, there's just there's you're going to continue to see the book be written, you know, in this very important secondhand manner made possible by these guys.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big thing too, for me, like when I think about like watching Johnny Gaudreau and highlights and stuff, I mean, the thing for me is he always looked like he was having fun. I mean, with that smile, like it was iconic. And I think when you look at like just him as a teammate, like, I mean, obviously, again, we've all seen, obviously him just squirting Gatorade into his line mates' mouths and stuff on the bench. And he had that personality watching. They both did. I mean, obviously, again, we've seen a lot of player tributes. I mean, obviously, when you look at the impact that he had, I mean, it's the entire league. It's, next 15, 20 years of hockey players coming up. And I mean, obviously, Cole Caulfield is a huge, huge example. Obviously, he was his hero. And, It's just it's definitely such a massive loss for the league, for hockey. And like we've talked before, where we see other leagues celebrating them and honoring them, and it's something that we really haven't seen too much of in years past in hockey. When we see a player pass away, or there's always maybe a little bit, but I mean it just shows you the impact that they had on the communities. And I mean just like, again, like talking about like Philadelphia, and even seeing Jalen Hurts and a lot of these guys, where it's
Yeah.
like you see just the impact that these two guys had, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, it's like it transcended the boundaries of the sport. Like, because you had like high profile players from other realms, like even just like LeBron James, also based out of Ohio, but just it was something that touched him. Just like he acknowledged it as just was something that legitimately was just absolutely emotionally devastating, and something that he could acknowledge the impact of in a direct sense, even sans that communal tie. But like also Mike Trout from the Los Angeles Angels, one of the biggest baseball stars for like well over a decade, acknowledged it as well. And then just in the context of the community of the game, like it was. I think what was most remarkable is you had even the CHL and its constituent leagues paying homage to like guys who were never even within their boundaries at any point, and just because of their acknowledgement of like their impact on the sport and the continent. Although, of course, like it was like interesting. It is interesting to see some of the corners that they even touched in an indirect sense as well. Like the head coach for the Victoria Grizzlies in the BCHL, and Matthew had cross paths in the American junior system before as well, which was like made his tribute very, very personal. And it's just like, it just shows how engaged that they were in so many different capacities that you could just feel it wherever you went.
One, I'm hoping to get some more stories from people who have been around them. Like, looking to the Anaheim Ducks org specifically, the one story that I really would love just to hear more about, and definitely not immediately, but I understand the grieving process because it's clear that there was a decent relationship. I would really love to see, or just hear Greg Cronin's perspective on Johnny. As some most know, that Johnny originally had intended to go to play to Northeastern and then flipped his commitment to BC after Cronin's exit from the university. So really would love to have heard, some of Cronin's thoughts of, interacting with a 17-year-old Gaudreau.
Yeah, I imagine. I'd definitely love to hear it as well. I'm sure it would be very much in like similar testimonial, like you know, uh, characterization, I suppose, like to what we heard from some other of the anecdotes from those times, like from Jerry York about just how terrific both of those guys were, and also Kevin Hayes in that campus tour story. Like just you know, it's like both of those guys. And we know about and have the most stories about Johnny specifically. Very like glowing, and also just like using that glow in like a meaningful way, and just having that natural ability to connect with people, and that just to be genuinely invested in them. Like BC saying, the nicest player we ever had, in addition to one of the most talented. So I can't imagine that anyone ever like could have anything that strayed from that. It's all just going to be like the best variations of this phenomenal, outstanding character and personality.
I do love how him and McDavid, though, at the All-Star game did play off the whole Alberta rivalry thing when they were like practically back-to-back getting interviews. I thought that was so funny. And I mean, that the Voracek Ryan Johansson shootout skill thing at the All-Star game was just probably one of the funniest things too. Just seeing like Patrice Bergeron and just Claude Giroux just getting such a chuckle out of it, like that was just so great. And just seeing the camaraderie, and just again, just see their relationships that these guys had, and just it does show you so many of the good parts of hockey, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I mean, looking at like that 21-22 season, I mean, obviously it was last year in Calgary, but like, I mean, he lost out to McDavid by like 7 points, but to have 150 points and 90 of them were 5-on-5, like it's just insane. And then they
So
have
many of
a plus 65, which was the highest since 1987 when Gretzky put up one of the last ones. So it's just the attention to detail throughout the entire game. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah. Let me pull up the precise statistics on primary points here. It was a lot. Like I tell you, the percentage of his like productivity output that year was very, very little of it was secondary assists. It was 77 primary points at even strength per J Fresh in 21-22, 34 goals, 43 primary assists. Most by any player since Mario Lemieux in 92-93, and the most by a winger since Yari Curry in 84-85. And then, like, you think about that, like, those sort of numbers are in the like the numbers of the line, like as Jay Fresh points out, he was the driver of it. And then and you contextualize it individually, like he was putting up statistics that were on par with some of the best offensive seasons ever. And then him being like a plus 64 is one of those instances where it's such an extreme example where it's actually indicative of something, especially when you juxtapose it against, or rather like look at it in tandem with the other 5v5 stats. It actually counts for a lot. It actually indicates how good of a player he was that season.
Yeah, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, then like the crazy low flex, yeah, obviously a lot of it was the size. And like Phil Kessel, who just liked the feel of a very low flex.
Something to his dietary methods as well, as we saw in yesterday's tribute game. Because I was on a diet of Gatorade in Skittles, and I scored 8 goals, including a natural hat trick that started with that impossible angle, as we all remember.
For sure, yeah. I mean, that impossible angle shot, sorry. Um, yeah, that goal's one of those, you talk about, something that I always would talk about with Hall of Fame candidacy in other sports. Like one of the things that I always said why I didn't think Edgerrin James was a Hall of Fame running back in the National Football League. And really how that ties back to Johnny Gaudreau and that Dallas goal is, you talk about players in sports having those iconic moments, those highlights that live forever in the memories of fans, and really that crazy angle goal against Dallas that pretty much pulled Calgary back into that series is just, it's such an iconic moment in Calgary Flames history. Um, yeah, like not there are so many guys who've been great in the history of the sport who don't have, that moment in the postseason. I think about a guy like Rick Nash and all the greatness he had in Columbus and all of, the incredible goals, going 1v5 against the Phoenix Coyotes all those years ago. But like the fact that he never, had that playoff moment, and you just look at like Johnny Gaudreau probably having the most scintillating moment in recent, 20 years. Positive Calgary sports history, obviously, there, there's the infamous moment in Game 6 of the 2004 Stanley Cup Final. But that sad moment aside, like that impossible shot is one of those highlights that we're going to still be watching, 30 years from now. And so many guys don't have that moment on, in their, not resume, but, in their career.
Yeah.
Like, man, I can sit here and be like, Owen Nolan was one of the star players of his era, but I can't name a single defining moment in Owen Nolan's postseason career off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing with John too, though, like when you look at his highlight reel, I mean, it's far more than him scoring a goal. It's him going to like 3, 4 guys and just doing no look drop pass or just creating that play where he finds the open player and it's like, how did you do that? Like,
Or both at the same time. Like that national title game against Ferris State. Like that whole, like, the slot was absolutely stacked, and he just still gets off that ridiculous backhander, which effectively sealed the game. It was just, that was like, it's funny. That's him as a freshman, and yet that embodies everything about the best side of his skill set at the same time in one play. It was insane. And he was like 5'6", 137 that year.
Yeah, man, that's just a lot of hard work and a lot of late nights working on skill, vision, IQ, anticipation. And that's the part that we never, you know we talk about it, but it's so infrequently discussed. You know, a guy small in stature, just the effort and the studying and the understanding and the invisible work that gets put into the game that, people at home watching just never really got to see with him. And just, anybody who watched any NHL game that he ever played in, beyond just the highlight moments, um, you knew that this guy put in a fucking crazy amount of work behind the scenes on all of these skills. I
Right.
mean, and
And,
that's just, yeah.
and so much of what people think of intuitive game situational awareness is really, it comes from studying tape. It's like what the kind of the template for the contemporary high IQ guys, which like even as much as like his particular game wouldn't be translatable today, like Wayne Gretzky like was like a bona fide student that made it possible for so many like contemporary trends to take off. He said, "I don't think a physician or an attorney is like going to be uh, you know absolutely a standout at their job by instinct or reflexes. I'm putting in everything I've when I if I seem to know what's going on, it's not because I have some sixth sense. It's because I've just watched so many games and have studied the sport enough to recognize trends well enough to know what guys might be doing in a given game situation. And every single one of those guys, and with Gaudreau being one of the key uh, demonstrations of that in a contemporary context, follow that exact same template.
Just so much to process still. You know, it's also crazy how he's definitely gonna, like, he's the most prolific scorer from that draft class as well. Which is kind of fucking absurd to think about. Like, I don't believe any player in 2011 eclipsed his PPG total, which just speaks so much to really everything he brought to the table. There aren't too many drafts where you can sit there and say, a fourth round pick was the guy. You know, it's really, frankly, some Tom Brady shit of just, speaking of guys who worked hard, studied film, had auras, were good people. Um,
Um, the only guy I think who might be above him is Nikita Kucherov,
mm,
but like, yeah, he's got an advantage over him at minimum. But I mean, you know, like it, those two guys, like they're just like, it's like they had obstacles of like their own kind. Like it just no one ever considered like for a long time that Gaudreau was going to be much of a threat, and then Kucherov was like he was like kind of a late bloomer. in a respect when you consider like how his dev path definitely strayed from like the typical Russian format. So it's like, I love so much of that. As many good first round picks, like that top three. A lot of like the top three selections end up being actually pretty underwhelming. But like a top three of RNH, Landeskog, and Johnny Huberdeau is pretty solid. I wouldn't necessarily, I like definitely like in retrospect wouldn't have it in that exact order. But like, although I won't bat an eye that like it was that way. And then you had other guys like Shifley, Couturier, Hamilton, that have had good impacts on the league since then. JT Miller, uh, I'll say Zibanejad, Raquel. But it's like, I think you could very much argue that those guys might have been the two biggest individual stories from that class.
Absolutely. I mean, when you talk about guys who are, we're effectively franchise-altering talents. Obviously, Kucherov walked into an organization that really put a lot of the building blocks in place before he got there. Credit to, the front office down in Florida with the Lightning. But, Calgary, I mean, Gaudreau was such a unexpected, to come into that team that at that point in time was not great, was like coming into the end of the Jerome McGinley era.
Yeah, because he'd been gone for a couple of years at that point once he joined the roster.
Like, this was a team that, whiffed in there with their first round pick that year on Sven Baertschi, which, for better or for worse, I think that, the Calgary Flames situation just was not conducive to a lot of promising but not potentially as diligent or, impactful young talents. But, like, to see Gaudreau's initial arrival in Calgary and just become such a star for them so quickly in really such a short amount of time. Just absolutely like like we don't talk enough where he stepped in really and became the star player for all intents and purposes on that 14-15 team and guided them to the playoffs pretty much as a rookie.
Yeah.
Like as a fourth round pick, like his trajectory is so unprecedented, just really crazy the more you think about that. Like a combination of him, Yuri Hoodler, and Sean Monahan accelerated that rebuild.
Yeah, so like to contextualize from like a statistical standpoint, he was the lowest selected pick in that year's class to have at least one ASG nom or selection rather. And out of context, you think maybe like that would be someone who had like a couple of fluky seasons or outlier seasons and was just like a reliable player who had some like high ceiling years. But instead, this is a guy. Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Then one first All Star team selection in 22, obviously, and then very narrowly missing out on being MVP. And Lady Bing as well. Like, like last guy to have a really really good individual resume in that class in terms of draft order, but right there as one of the top two or top three at minimum in terms of individual output. It's ridiculous.
And I mean, just think about his output, like people were not necessarily as high on his years in Columbus, which to me is fucking crazy. Like this dude still had over 100 assists in a 2-year span. Like
Yeah.
that's fucking crazy.
Right, and when you contextualize it in a relative sense, like he was outpacing people in points production by a significant margin. Still, like, is it a drop off? Yes, but it's kind of inevitable, and given the context, and like it's like when you consider it in, outside of a vacuum of just what the stats indicate at face value, it's still like really remarkable performance.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think going from Calgary to Columbus, I mean, I think that obviously there's definitely a difference with some of the caliber of the players
I
around
think
him, and
that
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think with just, I mean, obviously again, they did deal with a lot of off ice stuff, obviously with the coaching staff and all that weird shit. So it's just crazy.
I mean, like, I just, I, when you look at, and it's too bad that there won't be more of this. It's just, and that makes so, amongst other many other things, of course. But one of the biggest sources of disappointment is like that Pascal Vincent finally had the sense at one point to configure the lines to have him and Fantilli on the same line, and they both benefited from it. Probably like the thing you most seriously contextualized was that Fantilli was finally looking like the superstar that he probably still can be, which is like a really exceptional ceiling. But Gaudreau was benefiting from it as well, and it's like, why wasn't it just that way the whole time? And like, maybe, uh, for all the other things Dean Evison might be at the end of the day, I think he would probably be smart enough to keep that combination together, and maybe even have Monahan on that line as well, as we talked about before. It's like, um, yeah, it's like just one of those things where like we only got vague tastes of what he could have been doing in Columbus before this tragedy. It's like he already put together like an impressive individual acumen there, but like it's not ever going to be a complete work, which is just awful.
Yeah. So much to digest still. Man, you look at Damien's feed and he's all eyes.
Hey,
Now he's not even on. Oh yeah, this dude in his yellow hat.
yeah.
Gotta keep it light. Gotta make fun of the third wheel. Doesn't know how to have his hat sticking out of his hair without making him look like a goofball.
Yeah.
Drinking water by the gallon. Thirsty boy. Thirsty for that Gaudreau Brothers content.
Yep.
Be like kind of baffled if I ever saw him drinking it out of any other receptacle, to be fair.
Yeah, I feel like if we ever saw Damien with a regular 16-ounce water bottle, we'd have to be afraid of him just eating the plastic because it's so small. Just him just devouring a whole Poland Spring bottle. I mean, let's face it, at this point, with what we know about the current recycling system in the United States, Damien eating a plastic water bottle is probably better for the environment.
Yeah.
Not for him, but for the environment.
No.
Can the human body digest plastic? I know it has issues with microplastics that cause all sorts of fucked up diseases, but like, damn.
At the
Yeah.
least, we should get him something that's BPA free to maybe like a little bit.
Damien is BPA free swallow cup, not a sippy cup.
Oh man.
That one landed probably better than it should have.
Yeah,
Man.
I apologize to the viewers at home as I continue to pursue some lighter moments here in the final-ish stretch of this episode.
Yeah.
Trying not to make things too somber because that's not what Earth, Wind, and Fire would have wanted to start this wonderful month.
Plastics and microplastics passing through an organism's gastrointestinal tract require a long digestion time, which decelerates their degradation rate, hence these are retained in the organism's body. Oof.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm gonna have to find like maybe a hemp swallow cup, like hemp-based cardboard style. If I can sell hemp-based T-shirts, I should be able to sell hemp-based swallow cups.
Oh man. Yeah, is that going to be through the Black Stitch Hockey merch site?
I'd have to find a company that'll manufacture, digestible cups.
Oh man.
Or digestible bottles. I mean, what sport would we probably have the best marketability with on this? Probably marathon runners.
Yeah.
Like, if there's any semblance of nutritional value in the cup, marathon runners would be all over digestible water or digestible bottles. Just eat your hydration.
I was honestly waiting for a Colin Coward moment.
This is the one episode where I'm not.
I know. We're trying to.
I'm actively trying to not have a true Colin Coward moment. I actually kind of hate the fact that Colin Coward is now mentioned even in this cast episode.
That is facts.
Especially because like the dude's from the West Coast, so he's not even relevant. Man, I'm ready for all the tributes that are going to come this season.
I get emotional, like, thinking about that first Columbus home game with it being against Florida. Like, there's a lot of, like overlap there, but, like, between, like, essential chapters of the past. Like, that Monahan's gonna, be, like, reuniting with Kitchuk and Bennett under those circumstances, and it's just like, oh man, that's hard to watch.
I'm also considering tracking down tickets to Columbus's first visit to the Garden this year, mainly for the Elias Lindholm overlap, but also imagining that the Bruins organization with the Boston College ties will have probably a pretty impressive pregame and even in-game tribute to him because that city has always put on for guys that went to school here under all kinds, and with Lindholm, former line mate now being in the black and yellow, I fully suspect that there's going to be some really emotional moments for the Boston faithful when the time comes for that matchup early in the year.
Yeah,
No, November 18th is that.
there are a few dates on like the calendar you can just like circle, like anytime like the Flyers will play the uh, Jackets or even the Flames for that matter. CBJ versus Calgary. Like just there's gonna be like there are a lot of opportunities. One for onlookers to just tear up, and for a lot of like gestures to be made. It's just like I kind of anticipate, because I've kind of like pointed out reflexively with Johnny particularly, this might actually be the most high-profile premature passing of an active member of the North American professional sports leagues in the 2020s. So it's like, there's just like I anticipate, honestly, even just as a league-wide thing, with there already having been 32 teams all having made a statement, irrespective of their proximity to a relationship with Gaudreau, that every single team in the league will probably at least, even if only for one night, have the 32 decal. The 13 decal on their helmets, if nothing else. Like, it's never mind like other teams with more direct relationship with something that's going to be going on year long in terms of tribute gestures.
Yeah, I do think we're gonna have. I wouldn't be surprised if the 13 ends up being league wide potentially all season if they can get that on a helmet sticker. I wouldn't be shocked because as you alluded to, it really is unprecedented. A player of his magnitude in league circles passing so tragically.
Yeah, as I chew on it, like I think I may be wrong, but I think the Sean Taylor 21 was a league-wide initiative for the rest of that 2007 NFL season. So if it's just a sticker and not a full-blown jersey emblem, then it would definitely be viable for it to be on throughout the whole year. But like we'll see. Like I really hope this is something that's like treated with the gravity that it should be, rather than something that the NHL's PR optics just absolutely blows. But I also think this actually matters to enough people on a personal level to where they just cannot fuck it up and won't. Like that's my expectation anyway.
Yeah, I do think this is going to end up similarly situationally being like the bubble when we had a lot of the political and the civil unrest that led to a lot of dialogues about the NHL's position on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and obviously Matt Dumba becoming very much a bit of a pariah in the eyes of some politically leaning fans, but a very outspoken person for the league at that point in time. And really, for the guys in the league playing the games, wearing the jerseys, making the dollars for, the shareholders, Dumba really put on for his fellow league members. And knowing that Dumba was put into that situation and took that mantle up based on the recommendations and the understandings of his peers, I think we're going to see a very, very similar dialogue regarding this. And we've seen that the league can occasionally use its brain collectively to do the right thing on not a more serious issue, but a more vague issue that doesn't really impact the league directly. So knowing that, as the old boys club operates, this is one of those times where they can kind of lean into their traditional love of any player that's ever played for the Crest. But what do I know?
Only time will tell. At least we know, like, there are a number of orgs that we know are gonna not take the contributions of either of them, because there's the paper trail and the pros for hockey beyond just like his impact at BC and the USHL by Matthew will be recognized too, and I think that you can for a fact that they're going to show every bit of appreciation and admiration and remembrance that they possibly can for those guys.
I like to see the Worcester Railers do something cool for Matthew, as it was his last professional career stop. They don't have anything bigger going on, man. They could really do something fucking cool for him if they had the budget and really the oversight from the coast. I won't put too much expectation on them though, because it's not like they have billionaire owners with pockets so deep that it's weighing heavy.
Yeah. But this is one of those things that, as tragic as it is, it does galvanize a community. So, like, the vibe in the DCU Center is going to be different this year, just because this is going to be like one of those things that sort of really sets a fire under the fan base and even the community in Central Mass in a way that it hasn't in a while. And will really drive them to get engaged more. So if it's something that if starts at a grassroots level and then works its way up, then so be it. I think we'd just be equally happy to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see the community just really come together, and it's nice to see a lot of the positivity and just the unity for because I mean we've talked about a lot of it where you always see negativity, you always see gatekeeping and stuff, and it's been great to see the entire community come together.
Yeah, as we sit in one of the most divisive times in the history of the nation that the three of us live in, it is such a tragic event, but it's at least, you know, at least we've seen so much unity, as you've said, and so many people have come together with a common good,
Yeah.
and just, to pull people from all across walks of the United States to fucking come together from a position of love instead of hate for the first time in what feels like half of my lifetime has been, something of if there is an afterlife, that these two dudes can really smile about the, in one of the shittiest timelines in this country's history with division, they were able to bring together a whole lot of fucking people for, even if it only ends up being 3 or 4 fucking days, man, they still brought together a lot of humans in this country. And,
Yeah,
that's real fucking hard to do.
and as we pointed out, generally, aside from the fact that it's an awkward time to be alive, period. I won't declare my position as other than that one time I indicated that I am I indicated a very popular opinion that I am not a Vladimir Putin fan, because I figure that's about as palatable of a political opinion you can express these days while taking a side. Uh, I won't express partisanship, so and because we don't generally take a firm stance on things that involve you know making clear stances on these divisive topics known. We have initiatives that we take part in, but we consider that just a human response sort of thing as a brand for us to do. But I'll acknowledge that, there are things like the culture wars that really draw out the fact that there are people generally that see the world so differently nowadays and just are, very rigidly opposed to one another, even exaggerating the differences in their views and their nature from one another tribalistically and all of that. And in hockey, as we've said before, there are just so many diverse sets of worldviews that often come to blows with one another. And this is one of those rare instances where these very conflicting and very very divided stances are put aside for a moment, because we all recognize the significance of this and the tragedy of it, and feel compelled not only to speak out and be with be beside one another for this necessary healing process, but to actually take action about it. And that's beautiful, no matter how transient it ends up being.
Normally, I'd say we should go and do a big finish, but I actually think that statement is. I don't think we can say anything better than that to close out this episode. I think those last two. Um, sorry, lost my fucking train of thought. That was fucking beautiful, man. Yeah, I don't think we can really put out anything better to close out this episode. Anything more emphatic or directly correlated to what we've said tonight. I think, and a lot of things we've said. We've been articulate, we've been intelligent, we've been distracted at times when needing to take a break from the gravity of the situation in this episode. But that's all I've got this week. I think this is a strong point to leave off on.
Yeah. I did have because
Yeah.
I did kind of have the anticipation that we weren't going to lean all the way into this, but I also was like, let's do this organically, see where it takes place, because this was going to be a cathartic thing no matter what. So I did prep some Dev League stuff, just so we could have some our usual activities there. But I'll try to. I had a lot, just in case we ended up dedicating maybe like a 40-minute window to this. But I'll just keep it down to the essentials, and then just say our goodbyes, and one final respect, drop some links, things like that in the comment section, and then we'll just do our send off. But so there was a fair amount of trade activity in the CHL this past week. Most notably, the a deal centering on Ryder Ritchie and Thomas Miricic occurred in the WHL, with Ritchie headed to Medicine Hat, and Miricic, along with the 2 third-rounders, heading to the Prince Albert Raiders. While the Medicine Hat Tigers also signed 2 already NHL drafted defensemen from Finland, who were members of their draft class in the CHL import draft this year. So they've really stacked their roster well. I can't imagine they even have much competition in the Eastern Conference, at minimum, if not the whole league at this point. So as many good talents as there are on that roster, such as Gavin McKenna, Caden Lindstrom, and Andrew Basha, the team is just looking even better now, and it's going to be something pretty remarkable. The Brampton Steelheads were notably involved in some transactions as well. They sent out Ryerson Leanders to the Brantford Bulldogs. In exchange, Brampton will receive 3 second-rounders, 3 third-rounders, a 4th, and a 5th over the next few years in exchange for that. And it's a very typical high-profile CHL trade fashion. There was a lot of, scholarship and development agreement signings over the past couple of days. As you know, we're now in training camp season, and teams are getting their commitments settled to finish their rosters. We've also had scrimmages. We had our first couple of preseason games today in the O, such as the Guelph Storm taking on Brampton and winning 6-4. You know, as you did anticipate, solid individual showing from Jet Luchenko in that game as he continues his habitual tendency to rally, to put out multi-point games as he demonstrated in those inter-squad scrimmages. And the Peterborough Petes defeated the Niagara Ice Dogs 8-7 in a game that ultimately was settled in a shootout after having been a shootout in its standard proceedings in regulation and overtime. There was an interesting note from the dub. The Lethbridge Hurricanes, interestingly, really were wheeled out a configuration with the their training camp roster, wherein every single player was someone who they already had within their grasp, whether having been on the active roster or just having their prospect rights via scholarship and development agreement that might be playing as prospects slash affiliates rather than bringing on any external roster spots as on a tryout basis, because that's a pretty standard practice in the CHL, just like you see in the NHL. But they seem to have strayed from that norm. Maybe just really taking this time to evaluate the talent they have. So I thought that was a curious strategy. But yeah, the regular season in the C will start a lot sooner than the end. We're talking maybe I think it's 19 days to the start of the dub was the indication I got from the Vancouver Giants. You can expect high-level hockey starting on a competitive basis before the end of this month. Look at prospects and things like that. Continue to see this fantastic dev environment unfold. We'll see if we'll see, just how good this year is, especially with how fantastic the 2025 NHL entry draft class is going to be. It should be really exciting this time around. But yeah, back to the main topic and focus of energy this week. It's been just like it's been for so many others. This was a very difficult thing for us to all confront. But as much as this is something we're all observing from a third party standpoint, kind of removed from the situation vicariously, it's it's been a tough go for all of us, but it's been also very invigorating to engage with the community, you know, and just be able to form these meaningful connections and see how these things are playing out, and how galvanized everyone has been. So, thank you everyone who's been there for us. I'm going to drop those links for the different charitable causes. One, of course, the GoFundMe for the Matthew Gaudreau's widow and unborn child, which has been performing excellently. We don't want that to stop. That's been a terrific site. And if you can continue to contribute to Ohio Health's initiative for men's mental health, that would also be excellent. Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Line were very involved in that. That particular fund, if you're having difficulty to figuring out exactly how that works to contribute to that initiative in particular, there's a drop-down menu where you can select under designation. You can select that one at the top of the list. So that's how that kind of goes. Just going to do that right now. Oh, okay, I gotcha. There we go. Okay, yeah. That you'll be able to find that in the comment section of this stream, which will remain up as a standard practice. If you're listening on Spotify from the future or on watching on YouTube, again, we appreciate the ongoing support. If you need to find those links, we've been blasting them out on our socials pretty frequently. They're all pinned to the top of our profile, so you just stop by, visit Black Sit Hockey on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You'll find them there. You know, we are really, grateful to see what's been going on and to even have like a small hand in it. It's just been and it's supporting these genuine connections out of it. It's been helpful to us as well, just as people have been affected as fans, and we really thank you all for those who've interacted with us, because there's mutual benefit to be had that's actually really important for all of us too. So thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who tuned in or who is listening/watching on the other platforms. We all wish you well. Remember, like, just stay engaged. Obviously everybody's processing this differently, but like if you have the capacity physically, mentally, and emotionally to be involved in this, and still demonstrate the game that you love because of people like this, just keep doing it. It's been helpful to us, and if it's on the table for you, we think it will be for you too. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful night.